The fourth panel of our indicator is dedicated to the manual measurements. There are several buttons, divided into rows, and let's see now button after button what they are for. First button in the first row, it's called the mirror. I have already talked about mirror. In previous movies, it is used to measure equivalent cycles in real time. We'll see how this button works when we take the first measurements. The buttons in the first row we will describe later. On the weekly candles, these buttons are dedicated to Hosoda's special techniques that allow you to describe the price in a different way from the classic candles. Let's make the first measurement with the first button of the second row. To make this measurement, I need to find a point on the chart where the price significantly changed direction. By clicking on the direction change candle, the indicator marks the number of candles from that point to the current candle. As an example, let's take another candle where the price has changed direction sharply. From this day to today, 61 days have passed. At this point, we can use mirrors to see the equivalent cycles in real time. If we have chosen a reference point, like the candle that changed the direction of the price trend of 61 days ago, now let's go and see what happened 61 days before this candle. We do the same assessment with another reference point, and that is the candle of 28 days ago. In this case, it is clear that the price has changed direction. Now let's go to check what happened 28 days before that day. Easily we can see that both in the first and second case, the price has changed direction. We can say, today is the very important day, where the price can reach a new high, after which it will change direction. If we look at our equivalent cycles, we see that 61 days before our reference point, the price has changed direction. Even 28 days before the second reference point, the price has changed direction. We can also consider a day of tolerance, with the change of direction one day earlier. Let's also delete our previous measurements. Here is the third button of the second line, which allows us to visualize or hide the attack of our measurement on the considered candle. With the fourth button, we can decide on the line thickness, which displays our measurement. If we change the thickness to number 5, the change of the measurement line thickness becomes evident. We delete the measurement. We make a new measurement attached to the reference candle. With the fifth button of the second row, we can change the look of the measurement line. By changing the number on the fifth button to number 2, the look of the measurement line changes to a dotted line. There are 5 different styles of line presentation. It is more visual than technical aspect. The measurement is done in real time. It means that if a new candle appears tomorrow, the indicator will change the number to 62 automatically. Instead, the first button of the third row shows the pips in real time. That is, the size of the movement in pips. To get a good look at this measurement, let's go to the 5 minutes chart. The fourth panel, first button of the third row, shows the pips in real time. We can change the color, and we can change the measurement mode. We choose the measurement between extremes or closures of the candles. The first measurement we make on the extremes clicking on the minimum reached by the price in this period, the indicator shows us how many pips the price has moved up. We change the starting point, finding a minimum further away in time. In this case the measurement shows 120.7 pips. If the next candle reaches a new high, the indicator will change the measurement to the next candle, and change the number of pips reached. This real-time measurement is particularly useful on small time frames, such as 5 minutes. So, we can observe the magnitude of the impulse, or correction, as it changes in real time. Let's go back to our chart, with the daily candles, to see what other buttons are for. The first button of the fourth row is used to mark the periods of time on the chart. With the second button of the fourth row, we can change the color of our measurements. The measurements are used to mark the distance in time between elements selected by us. As in this case, 34 days. These measurements are particularly useful when we follow the equivalent cycles described by Sasaki. Another example of a fast measurement with 39 days. If we get the measurement wrong, for some reason, the change is very easy. Just select single items, move them on the graph, and click on the Modify button. Thanks to the manual measurement panel, we have a tool which allows us to draw and write all the measurements on the chart, which can be useful in the evaluation of Hosoda's cycles. The fourth button on the fourth row allows us to change the thickness of the lines we use for measurements. Moving on to number 5, immediately we can see the difference in thickness between line number 2 and number 5. The next button allows to change the style of the measurement drawing. According to our needs, we can draw dashed lines, dotted lines, and so on. The first button on the fifth row allows you to measure the magnitudes of movements in pips. We can mark the beginning and the end of a movement, and see expressed in pips the magnitude of the movement. We can make more measurements with this button. The third button in the last row allows you to change the measurement from the ends of the candles to measurements with the closing of the candles. The measurements change because we no longer take into account the extremes of the maximum and minimum reached during this period, but the closures of the candles. With the next button, we can change the thickness of these lines. By changing the thickness from 4 to 2, the line becomes thinner. With the fifth button of the row dedicated to historical pips measurements, we can change the appearance of the measurement lines. This button changes the appearance, and is not related to the measurement technique. As far as the functionality of these buttons is concerned, that's all. Let's go on the high time frame, that is weekly candles, to see what the Kyushu legs and other candles invented by Hosoda are 4. Let's take an example with the Kyushu legs, one of Hosoda's techniques, which were created for the weekly candles. We observe not only the change of color of the Kyushu legs, but also a particular pattern. In this case, the pattern of the change of the trend direction is called pattern B. After a bullish trend, the first signs of trend reversal appear. Exactly with this candle, pattern B appears. From this moment, we can take into consideration the change of the trend direction. By removing the Kyushu legs from the chart, we can see on the weekly candles how the price has behaved. Indeed, the bearish movement was very clear, which lasted until the candle that we marked as the end of the trend. This technique is used on weekly candles. It allows us to detect a trend movement of several weeks. In this case, the change of the color from black to white again made us guess the change of the direction of the price movement for several months. Another example of candles invented by Hosoda are the average prices. In this case, the candle is created with averages between 2 highs and 2 lows. It is clear that compared to classic candles, it is much easier to detect the trend in movement. All these techniques are described in detail in my advanced Ichimoku course. As for the fourth panel of our indicator, is all. Thank you for your attention.